Your children... There. Oh, why? Okay. Wait. Is this like okay. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you, for life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children as living arrows are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite and bends you with might that the arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness. I forgot to read the title. Your Children by... I forgot how to say that. Yeah, just pretend I said that.
Thank you, Michael. Next, we will have various church members talk about their mothers, and they'll just come up. I'm not going to get up in between people. And we're starting with Bill Stevens.
Mom was the social glue that kept a diverse family of 5 boys together. To give you some idea of the diversity, my brother Dick worked as a probation officer, a bookstore manager, and a builder and house inspector. My brother John started out as a philosophy professor and then went into computer science. My brother Rob was a fundamentalist Christian cult leader. And my brother Tom was an accomplished musician and composer. And we clashed often. So what Mom had the talent to do is to bring us together for social occasions, for meals, for holidays, and it was infused with a tradition that went back along her matriarchal line for many generations. One of the heirlooms that she had to help with the ceremony was a Spode Christmas plate that she inherited from her grandmother. And it sat on the mantelpiece in the dining room, and every Christmas, one of the 5 boys would get to eat off of that plate. And the dinner was always centered around roast beef and in warm community in the cold of the Christmas time. Somehow she was able to either smooth over or provide an environment for harmony that ordinarily would not be conceived of as possible. In her later years, her memory failed, and she developed pretty profound dementia, but there was a sweetness about her that kept with her till the end. And I think that this poem captures the way she was toward the end. Cat, do you remember me? You should, for I am Grandma Jane. This house where you live is the garage, you know, with 5 doors across the front. And the upstairs, in that large, airy room, I sat and read to the birds. The breeze, it blew through the redbud tree, and the dogwood was in bloom. So long ago was spring of life, and yet only moments passed. I wish I could hold that memory so dear to me, but now I only hold a purring cat.
This is my mother's college graduation picture. My mother, Edith Van de Bunty, died when I was 30, before my second daughter was born. I regret that my mother was not there to meet my second and third daughters, as well as build a relationship with my oldest daughter. I would have loved to have been able to ask my mother parenting questions or have someone listen to my parenting concerns and fears. Fortunately, 2 other women, Gazella Probst and Ruth Van Kampen, came into my life later to fulfill that role. And looking around this church, there are some of you that also did that for me years ago. My mother was born in 1931, number 10 of 12 children in her family. She had an older sister who was a second mother to her and instilled in her a love of reading. This sister was my mother's teacher in a one-room schoolhouse in southwest Minnesota. My mother was a good student, skipping 3rd grade and graduating at age 17 from high school. She then won a Pepsi-Cola scholarship that paid her entire college tuition of her choice and a $25 per month stipend. She chose to attend Hope College in Holland, Michigan, where one of her sisters already lived. She was a scholar and could always answer my homework questions, even through high school. I had one college teacher who also had my mother as a student and remembered what a keen mind she had. That was a tough act to follow. My mother married my father her senior year of college, and like women in the 50s, had 4 children in 7 years. She once shared with me how happy she was when the birth control pill became available in the 1960s, and wondered why her mother did not practice any birth control. Aside from clashes over hem lengths during my high school years, she was someone I could talk to. I recall asking her opinion on abortion when it became legal, and if she thought people who had never heard of Jesus would automatically go to hell. My adolescent mind was already rebelling against the Calvinism I was raised in. She did approve of legal abortion and gave a very universalist answer in regards to my theological question. There are things I did not share with her during my college years, but later in my later 20s, I valued her help. My mother developed eyesight problems in her 30s and 40s and eventually was considered legally blind. She did not complain. She managed to keep reading and sewing with magnifying glasses, although she would often ask help in threading the needle on the sewing machine. She had never learned to drive, so never had to give that up. Instead, she preferred to walk everywhere, often turning down rides. She valued being outdoors and loved nature. She was a lifelong learner, enjoying study groups with AAUW Women, the American Association of University Women. She was into environmentalism in the 70s and ecology. She also enjoyed her volunteer work at her church as the church librarian. Her life was much too short. She died of a brain tumor at age 57. I would have loved to have continued to find out her views on life as time has gone by. The summer my mother was dying, the retired neighbor across the street, Gazella Probst, was friendly and offered a sympathetic ear whenever I needed one. Gazella taught me how important it is to have friends of all ages. She was Catholic and was raised with the attitude that if you see a problem, you analyze it, you come up with a solution, and then you act. Knowing that I would not have my mother available to assist when my second was born, she and her husband offered to come over to watch my oldest when we went to the hospital. I was so grateful. Gisela also came over immediately one day when I called in tears. I had snipped my baby's finger while trying to cut her fingernails. I think many of you mothers or fathers can relate to this. I didn't know what to do. The bleeding wouldn't stop. She came over and with her calm presence took care of the matter. Fortunately, in later years, I was able to return many of these favors as she aged. Another woman, Ruth Van Kampen, entered our lives a few years after my mother's death. She and my father met in hospice training class and started going out for coffee together. Although they never married, they had a more than 20-year relationship in which Ruth embraced our entire family, even though she had children and grandchildren of her own, providing a grandmother figure for all of our children. Ruth was a Democrat to my father's Republicanism and a liberal to his conservatism. They avoided discussing politics or religion. Ruth disliked organized religion, but did attend Fountain Street Church in Grand Rapids, where they often had UU ministers and they used her hymnal. I could be candid with her about my religious and political views where I could not be with my father. All of the grandkids adored Ruth. She would listen to them with respect and kindness and be playful with them on weekends at our cottage by saying things when swimming such as, "Let's all pretend to be mermaids." 11 girls would then immediately join in the fun. Ruth taught me that you can build all type of kinship relationships. Whether you have a mother or not, whether you have a good relationship with your mother or not, look around you, and you may be surprised to find some wonderful friends and mentors of all ages.
When I think of my mother, there are certain things that, when I get together with my family, we all kind of remember together. One is going to church every Sunday to Catholic Mass. And I remember being able to predict the meal we were having by the canned vegetables she got out that day. I remember the meticulous bookkeeping she did in this green cloth-covered binder, where she noted every expense and every income to make sure that she had food for our six hungry kids. I remember her mixing powdered milk in a big bowl and adding it to the regular milk we got delivered because 4 young boys drink lots. So these are some of the things. So on this morning, when many of us are remembering the women that raised us and knowing in our tradition gratitude is a spiritual practice, I want to offer my gratitude to my mother, Catherine Sarah Williams, and the gifts she gave me. Mom was a woman shaped by intelligence, curiosity, and a quiet resilience I didn't fully understand until much later. She was a gifted student. In high school, she won the Bausch and Lomb Science Award, a sign of the potential that she carried. Years later, I won that same award, and she was very proud. It was like a thread connecting us to a dream she once held herself, continuing on in me. But in her time, girls were often steered toward two paths, either nursing or teaching, and she chose nursing, beginning with her training just as World War II started. While she was in training, she met my dad, who was home on leave from the Army, and they married. My sister was born soon after, and like so many women of her era, she set aside her own dreams to raise a family of 6 children. I was number 5. But she never lost her love of learning, especially when it came to medicine. Throughout her life, she read every article she could find about hospitals, treatments, breakthroughs, anything connected to the world she once imagined herself to be working in. And if there was a medical show on television, she watched it. That curiosity never left her. And when my youngest brother reached middle school, she did something remarkable. She went back to college part-time, determined to finish the nursing degree she had always wanted. That was her dream, chose with intention. Then life intervened. She slipped on ice in the parking lot and severely injured her knee. This was before knee replacements were available regularly, and the injury changed everything. She lived with intense pain for decades, and she never returned to school. I inherited her passion for knowledge, that hunger to understand the world, and I'm deeply grateful for that. It's one of the greatest gifts she gave me. There's something else I'm going to try to get through today. I never came out to my mom. I didn't come out fully until after college, and by then I lived far away. And my time with my mom then was, an occasional weekend. And my dad had passed away shortly after I graduated college. And so the idea of dropping that news on her and then leaving her alone felt difficult. So I stayed silent. But there was a moment, a small one, when she opened a door for me. She told me, I'm sorry. She told me about a boy she had dated in high school, how handsome he was. The only boy she had ever dated before my dad. And she said that years later she learned that he was gay. She didn't say it with judgment, she said it with affection. And that she had always held a place in her heart for him. And that she hadn't understood what it meant back then, only that they had just wanted to be friends. I was too young and too closeted to understand what she really was offering me. She was telling me in a language, in the language that she had, that the acceptance was already there. That love can stretch and grow and make room long before we're ready to claim it. What a profound motherly act. She eventually did get the knee replacement, finally easing years of pain, but soon after, she began showing signs of dementia, and I lost her slowly. I miss her very much, and I'm deeply grateful for the love she poured into her family, for the sacrifices I didn't see when I was young, and for the parts of myself that come directly from her. As I've grown older, I've come to understand something I couldn't see before, that not every dream gets to be lived the way we hope. Not every path goes the way we hope that it would. Yet a life can be deeply meaningful. The quiet choices, the steady resilience, the passions carried quietly in the background, they shape us as much as the big moments. Even interrupted or unfinished dreams, they can have a legacy of courage and curiosity. And even when the demands of daily life seem to rule the day, the quiet passions we carry have a way of shining through, shaping the people we love and echoing long after we're gone. As I remember my mother, I remember that a life doesn't have to unfold the way we much once imagined it. Dreams can change or be interrupted or left unfinished. Even when the demands of daily life seem to rule the day, the quiet passions we carry have a way of shining through. They shape the people we love. They echo long after we're gone. In honoring Mom, I remember the parts of her that live in me, the curiosity, the courage, the love of learning. Thank you, Mom.
Hi, good morning, everybody. So, this is taking a little bit to get this writing together. I've gone through lots of journaling, thinking about so I'm 5 months out of dealing with this kind of traumatic, unexpected death. This is literally on New Year's Eve, 2 a.m. She gets called in murder. So after 18-hour window, it became very clear that it's a long, bad thing, but it's just at the very end, I feel very blessed to have held her hand as she passed. It became clear to everyone that she was in total heart failure. That which the only solution would have been heart transplant, which at age 73 is not going to happen. So, I got to hold her hand literally as she passed, and the words that I could say, I just say, we love you forever, just go to sleep. In death there is only peace. You're a drop of water returning to the ocean. We love you forever. And that's just what came out of me. I hope that works. So it's not been fun. I rang in the bells for New Year's Eve. I'm crying myself to sleep, so a lot of fun, and then you cry and then you do that and then it's less and less and then you make a conscious kind of spiritual decision to just say let go Now I've had, deal with life, deal with family, house, reality, everything. So that's what I've had to do. So I'm not fully out of the grief process, if I can be honest with myself. You get to acceptance, you slide back in depression, and then as I'm going through all her stuff, I can get angry because I'm just like, you left me with a whole bunch of crap and a whole lot of stuff to deal with. You have no idea. But anyway, that's how it goes. So, deal with my dad, for example. We have help. So so I'm at a real loss. It's the first time. I've never been through this. So a truly honorful remembrance will take longer than I can really get straight now today, but I'll do my best. So I would say for me, she was a constant guiding rock in my life throughout everything, as well as sometimes a pain in the mind, So thanks to her, I'm mostly housebroken now, so I don't pee inside too much anymore, so I appreciate that. Bad joke. No, I'll save you a long story of my life, but just sort of growing up, like what everyone does, it was challenging and painful, so she was a constant childhood, adolescence, younger adulthood. She's a guide and counselor in so many things, truly, leveling and straightening me out, So learning from her, I could say, I think I can host a pretty good dinner party now if I wanted to. I clean a mean kitchen, I can cook pretty decently. All the good household tasks, you learn from your mom, right? Most people, and I know I did. Laundry, you learn how to make a bed, I can take care of all the house business stuff. She was a great cook, amongst many things. She had some wonderful recipes. She'd make a mean Indian-style chicken with dal and rice and cabbage, cumin seeds, all the right spices. She could do Chinese-style stir-fry, cornstarch, the right spices, oyster sauce, soy sauce, ginger and garlic, sesame oil. There were hundreds of recipes that I had, in a folder. Dozens of cookbooks I've yet to learn from and go through. She was an exceptionally crafty woman in so many things in terms of arts and crafts. She could knit and sew, many things. So some of our most prized possessions, we have blankets, scarves, hats, jackets, assorted decorations, so many things that she painstakingly designed and wove from scratch, knitted together. Well, I doubtfully will ever take up that art. I like to think some of that craftiness, and care. You talk about writing or music composition and that kind of thing. I think I got from her, so I hope. She was very mathematically minded. She was a mathematician and a physicist, physics professor. I think she had an internal mental brilliance that I don't think anyone understood. I don't know if anyone really knew what was going on inside her head, to be honest. You can only guess. But I imagine there were worlds. Because in her life, she read thousands, literally thousands of books. You do that, and I think that it's pretty astonishing. No one will ever know what was going on in there. She had a rare and unique intelligence. She had a very good green thumb, too. So when I look at the collection of plants in this 30-year-plus house that she lived in all around, that I helped take care of, too, she planted all that stuff, cultivated it, and took care of it. I wish I'd gotten more time to learn plant names. Every time I'd work with her out, and ask, hey, what's that? And she'd tell me, and so I don't, but I've gotten some sense of horticulture, I'll say, from her. She was an avid traveler, too, and that's one thing I'm really glad she got to do after she retired and in her later life, too. But she'd been all over the world. She used to go to China for professional relations, with different universities out there, and she was in South America, and it's hard to imagine her in Antarctica a couple years ago, but she was there. I think of, she was in Arctic, too. And when I was younger, I'm very glad that I got to go on some good trips with her, and so I'm just thinking of stuff. There's something very funny to me. I remember being a teenager, and she's doing downward dog poses in the middle of this Peruvian village on the way to Machu Picchu, and everyone's looking at her like, what is this? And the thing is that it was totally harmless and innocent, but it's just kind of like clueless. It's cute, you know what I mean? But it's the thing is, you don't get to be kind of a PhD in physics without some kind of autism or something. So, there's that too, I think of the obsessive compulsive flavor of things, anxiety. I know I get a lot of that stuff from her, so it is what it is. And you think of, it's a gift, I think, in some ways, be able to concentrate deeply on things, but you also have the attendant side of kind of suffering from your own mental loops, and I know that I talk with her a lot about this, so. And one thing is, being a baby boomer child, if she's born in 1952 in the East Coast with kind of conservative parents, there's certain psychological trauma that you get. And we talked about this in terms of what you're told you can and cannot do as a woman. For example, at a young age, she was told, oh, you can't sing, don't do it, don't even try. And so she never did. And, she never developed that sense of pitch, you know what I mean? I did test her rhythm, unfortunately, very little. No, but I just wish that I think you all know what I mean. It's sort of that's something you get from this generation. So anyway, she got later in life, she started to drop some of this stuff, and I was happy to see that come more into herself. So she was a professional career scientist at Notre Dame in the Department of Physics and Department of Physics, the College of Science. So when we had a memorial service here, actually in middle January, I was struck by how many people came out to attend. So I didn't know how well respected she was in that field and with everyone there, more than I'll ever know. I think most of all for me, she's a powerful thinker, so a deep person whose mental beginnings had no ends. I mean, her intelligence was astounding. This picture that I'm showing you was, it's been one of the last conversations I had with her, deep conversations. It's back in November, I think. And I was basically talking about, why is America so messed up? It's a political conversation. And, I was simplifying everything to black and white, good and evil, right and wrong. And she was explaining to me, look, there's a vast mathematical system, economically, in policy and government, socially. How do you maintain a culture and society of hundreds of millions of people? She was working on a unified field theory, I think, for U.S. society. I mean, she was. She almost got there. And, well, finally, it's sort of the lesson of physics is the one I take is, I was complaining to her once, hey, why isn't this piece of crap isn't working, blah, blah, blah. And she said, entropy. I said, oh, that's right. And it's true. I mean, you think of the cold, true reality of life is that everything breaks down, everything. The universe will itself die. So that's what it is. And that's the reality. For me, life is in essence a losing game. You don't play to win. That's my poetic take on it, and that's just reality. Still a heck of a loss, though. She continually missed, I think, in our family, but I'm glad that she didn't have to suffer this past winter and that she doesn't have to deal with all the horrors in the world now. So I am thankful in a lot of ways that she's not suffering, I like to think imaginatively she's hiking some mountains in the astral plane somewhere in the great beyond. That would be the best I could put it. So anyway, her ashes are now under a tree on the family property, and that's all she wrote. So thank you all.
Well, this is about my mother. Sometimes I had a strained relationship with her, but that was a long time ago, and I'm not going to stand up here and say anything difficult. So she did the best she could, and I've had a good life. When my mother was getting dementia, I went to see my parents at their home in Tulsa more frequently than I usually did. Then I would fly back to Chicago, and driving home gave me a chance to reflect on things. So one time it was clear my mother was getting dementia. She was always very neat, and there was food on the kitchen floor, so I knew something was going off. So it was clear I was losing her slowly, like Jim said. So I pretended to be preaching a sermon about her to myself on the drive back. So here's the talk I would have given at her funeral. My mother had 4 children. I was the oldest. She cooked dinner every night for at least 24 years. Going out to eat wasn't really an option. She was a decent cook, but we critiqued the food. My brother developed unique ways of not eating his vegetables, and he would wad them up in his napkin. Sometimes he would throw them over his shoulder. We thought we were quite funny. Besides that, she kept the house clean, drove us to school every day, and after school activities. My father worked for a large corporation, and so we moved 8 times to different cities. So my mother had to get a new house, furnish everything, find schools, make new friends. And as we settled, it was a lot of work. She liked to sew, and she made clothes. She wore the clothes made the clothes we were wearing in that picture. She would do other things like run the Girl Scout troops. And when Rich and I moved, she would come to the new house and help us move. The idea of appreciating all that unrewarding work never occurred to me. So thanks, Mom. One of her good traits, she would deal with anger and conflict. She didn't hide. Once she was mad at my father and threw a piece of bread at him. Once we were moving to the East Coast and we were going up the New Jersey Turnpike. And I was real, what's the East Coast going to be like? And we stopped at a Howard Johnson for breakfast, traveling with 4 kids in a station wagon. You wouldn't want to do that. We went to the Howard Johnsons. They had flies on the pastries. And she got really mad. And she said, talked to the guy, told him about the flies. She banged her fist and said, I will never, as long as I live, go into a Howard Johnson's. She didn't manage her anger real well, but I did learn that it's okay to speak up. And you don't have to suffer in silence. Loyalty in the family. She disagreed with me on a lot of issues. However, she never thought of kicking me out of the family or anything else. She was very loyal to her family, and she had a large family, and they all stuck together. Persistent. She never backed down or gave up that I could see. Once my father was out of town, and my brother was trying to go out on school night, so he was much taller than her, so she threatened to lay down in the driveway so he couldn't get the car out. Dressing, until she got dementia, my mother really made an effort to dress well. She made sure we had good clothes. When she was older, she bought a lot of expensive shoes, much to my father's dismay. So I know how to dress up if I want to. And she doted on her grandchildren. When they were younger, we would send them to stay at our house for a week. And Bobby loved their dog. Eli had this doll, and she had given him a huge wardrobe. She would buy clothes at garage sales. And I didn't want to do all the laundry for Buddy in addition to the regular laundry. But my mother would wash all these clothes for Eli. And she cooked all their favorite foods, did things with them. Eli enjoyed complaining about me to them, and they thought that was very funny. So part of growing up is finding yourself, who you are, and what you're good at, what kind of person you want to be. My mother thought I would become a corporate housewife. That was all she sort of knew. And I didn't seem to have qualities that were very suited for that. And then she was a very strong Catholic, and I didn't like the Catholic Church. So we had a lot of clashes, and it was the 70s, and I was doing stuff. And I think she was afraid of what would happen to me if I had this free lifestyle. So she tried her best to kind of try to straighten me out, but it didn't really work. And at some point, I had my own life. But I had to sort of pull myself out of all that and lead my own life, which was hard. But I did learn to be independent and have my own strength. But nevertheless, nothing bad happened to me, at least nothing too bad. And I had a good life and a good husband and 2 kids. So, what was there to worry about? So I was in a world she didn't know about. But anyway, I learned from her to be independent. And she helped along the way, and she had good traits that I remember. So thank you, Mom, and she'll live on forever. Now we will have a great song from Deb Carew.